Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. My name is Liaq Zaman and we are doing another crash course. Now, in today's crash course, we're going through Bid'ah, the concept of Bid'ah, which you might have heard many times being mentioned by people. So I thought to myself, you know what? Let me explain to everyone what the explanation or the gist summary of Bid'ah is. So Bid'ah is basically innovation. And innovation is something which is made up, right? Something that's new, introduced. So before we actually go into this, let me explain something to you guys. So in Islam, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has said in the Quran that He has completed the religion. Allah has made it complete. And when something is complete, it means there is no more room left. So in other words, if you were to make a timeline, say for example, this is the timeline of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He was 40 years old there, about 63 years old there. All of the Quran that was revealed, all of the verses that came from Allah, these are verses coming down, were all completed. Right, this was the completion of the entire Quran was done. And so now anyone who claims that there is something that is missing in Islam is actually going against what Allah said. So now the people that were living in the time of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam were the companions. So the companions, they learnt from the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. They learnt, so many things. They learnt how to pray. They learnt how to fast. They learnt how to do the pilgrimage. They learnt all sorts of things they began to learn. So now when it comes to this idea of what the companions learnt, we understand from this now. So we have something which is known as the Quran and the teachings of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Now the Quran and the teaching of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam make up the entire Islam. And the teachings of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam were passed down just like the Quran was passed down by the Sahaba, the companions. And so now we have this, you can imagine some sort of like if you were to imagine a kind of like image, let's try to make an image. So let's make it like a jigsaw puzzle. So imagine there's a jigsaw puzzle. Yeah, so this is my version of a jigsaw puzzle. Right, so I don't know how you guys make jigsaw puzzles. These are the kind of jigsaw puzzles that I used to enjoy playing. And if you guys enjoy playing jigsaws, put them in the comments as well. I'd like to see what you guys do in your pastimes. So anyway, so you can imagine this like jigsaw puzzle which the companions were passing down, which is a complete jigsaw puzzle representing the teachings in Islam, representing how we're supposed to follow the Quran, etc. So these pieces, let's say for example, some represent Salah, prayer, some represent fasting, some represent Hajj, some represent Zikr, some represent going to the mosque, some represent Umrah, going on the pilgrimage, some represent Zakat, giving charity, some represents helping those who are needy, some represent let's say war, some represent to do with marriage, some represent to do with trade, some represent to do with let's say the penal code, some represent inheritance, and so forth. These are some examples I'm giving you guys. So we have all of this like completion now, this entire completion that has been done. So all of this is basically what the Quran and the Sunnah, right, has been passed down from the who? From the Sahaba. So they passed it down now. Now if someone comes along and says, oh, I have an extra piece which everyone missed out, right, and they've got this extra piece, right, and they're saying that this extra piece, which we don't know where this extra piece fits in, we don't know where this extra piece fits in, but they are trying their best to try and fit it into this. Now if you imagine, if an extra piece, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 pieces here, let's say, and someone wants to put this 14th, number 14 piece in here, what's going to happen? It's going to disrupt the whole system, isn't it? So this is why it's very, very important for us to understand that we're not allowed to add anything else into the religion. Now, when we say we can't add anything else into the religion, imagine like this now. So imagine this is a table, right? So imagine here is a table. This is the table. Okay, this is the table is, okay, these are the legs of the table. And this is a table upon which the desk is set. And then let's say you have also a nice, beautiful light, a lamp. And this lamp is giving light so you can see what you're doing, putting the jigsaw puzzle together. So what you are allowed to actually do is you're allowed to add things as long as it's not in the jigsaw puzzle. So for example, if we change this table, if we were to get another table, or we were to change this light, right, then that would be fine, because these are nothing to do with the jigsaw puzzle itself. These are simply there to help us with this jigsaw puzzle. So that's why the scholars say that anything which is related to helping the jigsaw puzzle, this is allowed. So anything which is extra to help, then this is permissible. So let's have a look at some examples of this then. So for instance, let me just write for you guys an example, or actually draw for example for you guys. So let's say, for example, we take the example of the Quran. Right, so this is the Quran, let's say. And the Quran is obviously a book which is from the time of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, passed down. However, in today's times, there are various ways in which the Quran is recited. So you have, for example, people reciting Quran from an iPad. So now, when it comes to an iPad, then the iPad itself, because we have this concept of the Quran, but now we have an iPad, is this something which is new? Clearly, yes, it wasn't there in that time, but the Quran was there in that time. So therefore, now would you say that using an iPad is actually adding to this jigsaw puzzle? Are we saying that it is something which is necessary for us to read the Quran from? Well, no, it's actually something which facilitates. It's more like a table for the jigsaw puzzle. It's more like a light. It's more like something which helps us to be able to recite the Quran. Another example I'll give you guys is, for example, like let's say there is a person who is praying. This person is, let's say, standing on a mat, and they're in a room. Okay, however, the mat is made from a very, very luxurious modern material, and they're in a room which has air conditioning. So air conditioning is flowing. So if a person was to say, well, praying salat is part of the jigsaw puzzle, but praying on this particular mat, in this particular setting where you have a nice air conditioning and you even have, let's say, a very fancy light above him. So these are all to facilitate the prayer. Okay, now, obviously, let's say, for example, all this room setting is from IKEA, wasn't there in them days. So it is clearly something new, but is it considered to be added to the jigsaw puzzle? No, it's not. So now you're going to be asking me, can you explain to us a kind of rule that we can follow to kind of bring all of this together, make sense of what's happening over here? Yes, we can. So let me give you guys a rule then. So the rule that I find it very easy to be able to explain to people is as follows. You have to check several things. Everything you want to check in Islam, first of all, ask, is it in the Quran? If not, go to the next thing. Is it in the Sunnah? Meaning, is it in the teachings of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam? If not, then we want the next thing, which is it from the early generations? The early generation, right? So you have Quran, you have the Sunnah, you have early generations. That's basically what you first of all look for. Okay, these three things. Then you ask the next question, which is that is it something which people believe to be necessary? Do people believe this to be necessary? Right? Or do people believe this to be something which is a sin, like a wrong? Now, necessary and sin is what falls under the jigsaw puzzle. So everything in the jigsaw puzzle falls under necessary or sin in that sense. And so therefore, if a person uses this, they can figure out if that thing is actually part of Islam. So let me give you some examples of how we're going to be using this. So let's have a look at, for example, let's take the example of prayer. So how many prayers are there in the day? So we know that there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. These are 5 prayers in the day: Fajr, Dhuhr, Asr, Maghrib, and Isha. These are the 5 prayers that you have. And with these 5 prayers, you have extra prayer, the sunnahs, you can say, that you pray. Now, let's say someone came along and said, oh, you know, in 2020, a new prayer we're going to start. We're going to add a 6th prayer. So now we ask the question, is it in the Quran? No. Is it in the Sunnah? No. Is it from the early years of the Sahaba? Did they used to do this? No. Okay. Now, do you believe this to be necessary? Now, here is where it kind of like becomes a Bidah or not. So if they believe it to be necessary, or if they believe it to be a sin, that's when you have to prove it from the jigsaw puzzle. If a person believes it to be necessary, if someone says, oh, this is necessary, yeah, this is necessary, then this will become considered to be Bidah. This guy is an innovator, he is adding to Islam. But if a person was to say, I don't believe it to be necessary, but it's just something good, extra prayer that you do, it's just something good, then this person will not necessarily be doing a Bidah. This may be permissible, right? And this is what happens when we do other things as well. So for example, like we might have, let's say, particular types of fasting, let's say. So for example, like the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he used to fast on Monday sometimes and on Thursdays. So now if a person says, I want to also fast on Tuesdays. So is fasting is fasting something that is found in the Quran? Yes, fasting is found in the Quran. But fasting on Tuesdays, well, not necessarily in the Quran. Is it found in the Sunnah? Yes, fasting is found in the Sunnah, but necessarily on Tuesdays, no. Early generations. So the concept of fasting is something which is part of the jigsaw puzzle. That's fine. Now, if you believe it to be necessary, so if this guy says, I believe fasting is necessary, then this person is in trouble because he can't prove it from the Quran, from the Sunnah, from the early days Sahaba. That's when now it is not permissible. But if another person says, look, I don't believe it to be necessary, but I do believe it to be something which is good to do, you can do it, you won't be sinful for not doing it, then this person is totally okay with this. All right, so this is where it comes to this. So you can use this rule on anything you kind of do. For example, like in our days today, some people, for example, they pray, let's say, I don't know, or they recite a Quran, different number of chapters per day. Yeah, as long as they don't believe it's necessary, it's fine. Or for example, let's say some people may fast on random days. As long as they don't believe it to be necessary, it's fine. There might be someone who might even do lots of dhikr of Allah. Dhikr, remember Allah. Many different types of dhikr. As long as they don't find it to be necessary, then this is something which is totally fine. So there isn't anything wrong with this. Now you're probably asking me, well, can you give us examples of bid'ah that are wrong? Yeah, well, I've given you some over there. Now I'll actually give you some more. So for instance, like some types of innovations that people do. There are certain types of innovations that the early scholars divided bid'ah. They divided two categories: innovations in belief and innovations in actions. Okay, so innovations in beliefs and innovations in actions. Innovations in beliefs, for example, like believing that the Quran itself is the creation of Allah. Some people believed in the early years the Quran was the creation of Allah. But from the Quran, from the Sunnah, what we learn is no, the Quran is actually the word of God. This is the exact word of Allah, the speech of Allah. Right? It's not the creation of Allah, it's actually speech of Allah. So those people who believed this, they were considered to be doing the action of bid'ah. They were innovators in belief. Okay, so this is one type we have, and then you have actions. So actions, I've given you many examples of actions. Could be other examples of actions as well. For instance, like let's say a person believes that when you pray your prayer, when you stand up to pray your prayer, then you actually recite while standing up. Let's say, for example, you start to recite something that has not been proven. For example, like the at-tahiyyat. So I'm sure you're familiar with at-tahiyyat. Tahiyyatullahi wa salawatu tayyibat. Normally this is recited when a person is sitting. Yeah, when they're finishing off their prayer, they recite this. But if a person believes that it is recited when they are standing, then this is not allowed, because this is a bid'ah. This is a person who is, if they believe that it's necessary. Yeah, so this is something which is in the Quran, in the Sunnah, in the early generation, but it's not when you're standing. It's actually when you are sitting. That's when you're actually supposed to be reading this. Now, common questions that people ask. Some people ask these questions. For example, like doing dhikr on beads. So you have some people who have beads with them, and they do dhikr on these beads, what we call the tasbih beads, or the subha tasbih beads. Is this a bid'ah? Is it not? So is it in the Quran? No. In the Sunnah? Not necessarily. Is it in the early generations? Maybe some of them did it. However, again, do people believe, when they do this, do they believe that it's necessary to use the tasbih? Is it necessary? If they believe it's necessary, then it's bid'ah, because it's not proven. But if they believe it's just simply something that is okay to do, it's okay, it's not bid'ah, then it's considered to be fine. Yeah, it's considered to be fine. Nothing is wrong with this. Also, there is a fine line, and I'll just mention this and I'll finish off on this. There is a fine line between some of the scholars who have mentioned about bid'ah. There's a fine line with certain things that they've mentioned. So, for example, like some of the scholars have mentioned things like they've said, let's say, for example, someone says to say a certain type of dhikr. Let's say, for example, a person says the dhikr, La ilaha illallah. Say La ilaha illallah. Now this, obviously, saying La ilaha illallah is from the Quran, it's in the Quran, it's from the Prophet ﷺ, it's from the early generations, it's actually part of the jigsaw puzzle. Okay, however, if a person was to say La ilaha, let's say, I don't know, maybe 777 times, yeah, just a random number I just come up with, right? So saying it 777 times, some people might say, oh, if you say it 777 times, if a person believes that it is considered to be necessary, yeah, or a person believes that there is some special reward, right? This is another thing that I can add into this. So you can add this as well, which is a person believes that there is some special reward attached to it. Yeah, some special reward attached to this, then that thing will now be counted as bid'ah, because this number has not been proven in the narrations. But if a person just says, look, I'm just doing it because I've heard that other people have done it and have benefited from it, then many of the scholars, so let's say there is this guy who said, look, I don't believe it necessary, I don't believe it to be special, but I just believe it to be something someone told me that if you do it, it helps you out a lot. Then is this considered to be bid'ah or not? Some of the scholars have said, they've said bid'ah. Why is it bid'ah? Because this is something which is an excessive act that was not proven in the early generations. But most of the scholars, like for example Imam Shafi'i and others, so the first group was Imam Ibn Taymiyyah, and Ibn Taymiyyah, he says, would consider it bid'ah. Imam Shafi'i would consider it to be okay, it's fine. Let me just put 3 on that side just in case. Actually, this is the majority, isn't it? So it's going to be more people. Yeah, they say it's okay. Shafi'i says okay because it's not necessarily something which a person believes it to be a necessary part of the religion. So this is in a gist, this idea of bid'ah. I can't really think anything else on the top of my mind about things that are a person would consider to be an innovation or consider to be a bid'ah. But yeah, I mean, yeah, okay. Or is there anything else? Right. I mean, if you kind of look into, so for example, like maybe mosques, take a mosque for example, the dome on the mosque, this is something which is new. The minaret in the mosque, this is something which is new, not really from the Quran, not really from the time of the Prophet ﷺ, early generation. So this is new. This minaret is considered to be new. Maybe even having multiple classrooms or multiple floors. Classroom, these are all new. This is not in the Quran, it's not in the... maybe having like wudu facilities inside the mosque. Facilities for wudu, this is also new, because they never used to be in the early years. Carpet in the mosque, yeah, fancy carpet. This is also new. Having electricity, this is also new. Now, all of these things, are they considered to be bid'ah? Well, no one considers them to be a necessary part of the religion. They don't consider them to have special reward for having these. So some scholars have actually come out and said these are, in a kind of nice way, these are good bid'ahs. As in the term bid'ah here being used meaning something which is new. Right? So they call these, some of the scholars call these new bid'ah. So this idea of new bid'ah, Al-Izz bin Abd Salam, Al-Izz bin Abd Salam, he was one of the earliest people to actually say this. So this idea of new bid'ah, this was something that was mentioned by him. And then you have, some other scholars who said no, like Imam Shatibi, they said no, we should not even be using the term bid'ah for this. So Imam Shatibi, Shatibi, he said no way, Jose, no way. You can't call this bid'ah because bid'ah means something very bad, and the Prophet ﷺ said every bid'ah is a deviance, every bid'ah. So he said it's best to avoid the usage of bid'ah. Now, Al-Izz ibn Abd Salam actually does have some evidence, which is from Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu. Umar radiallahu anhu, he once said he saw the people praying Taraweeh and they all were praying behind one Imam. And when he saw this, he said, this is Ni'mat al-Bid'ah Hadihi. What a wonderful bid'ah. What a wonderful... Well, he didn't mean bid'ah as in the wrong bid'ah. He meant what a wonderful new thing these people are doing. Right, so anyway, so that's a gist of the concept of bid'ah. I know it's gone quite long, but yes. So like I said, the idea is the jigsaw puzzle. Anything else around it is totally fine as long as you don't believe it to be necessary or a sin or something special. And yeah, That's it, really. So let me know in the comments below what you guys think of this. If you find it useful, if you have any comments, if you want to add anything else to this, Jazakumullah khair. And inshallah, I will see you guys next time, inshallah, for the next topic. Jazakumullah khair. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Jazakumullah khair for watching this video. I hope to see all of you guys. If you guys are interested, please leave us feedback, get in contact with us. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Jazakumullah khair, guys, for all of your support. Without your support, I wouldn't have been able to produce the videos that I've put up on my YouTube channel. And there is so much more that I really want to do. And without the support of you guys who are patrons, generously supporting this channel, I've been able to get myself a camera, which, as you guys can see, the quality of this camera, mic system, software. I've been able to hire an editor. So what do I want to do? I want to make lots and lots and lots of more videos for beginners, for intermediate, advanced, in the subjects like Arabic and fiqh and hadith and tafsir and aqidah and all those other things as well. And for this to happen, again, this channel needs support. So if you guys want to become patrons and support this channel, then check out the link below. Also, if you do become patrons, you'll have access to videos that I don't put up on my normal YouTube channel. So check that out, inshallah. And there's most other perks as well that you guys can benefit from. And if you want to access this channel through social media, we've got Twitter, we've got Instagram, Facebook page, and other things as well that you can visit. So Jazakumullah khair again, guys. Thank you very much for your support. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.